Hey guys, welcome back to Reignited. Now, if you've been following my channel for a while, you know that a large portion of my channel has been dedicated to finding out what the source of the Hemi Tick is, and also what are the best prevention options for your vehicle to help keep that from happening. So of course, it is of interest to me when one of my viewers on Instagram, he sent me a message, sent me a link to a lawsuit that has been filed against Chrysler, Fiat Chrysler, Stellantis, whatever you want to call them. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to refer to them as Chrysler because that's the way I've always known them. So, of course, that was of interest to me, so I want to talk to you guys a little bit about this lawsuit. Now, just a couple of quick housekeeping points. Obviously, I have no legal training whatsoever at all, so anything I tell you is going to be from my point of view as a mechanic. You're always going to get the mechanical side of things from me. Secondly, I don't speak as a representative for Chrysler, Fiat, Stellantis, whatever you want to call them. I don't speak as a representative for my own employer. All I speak for is myself, so my opinions are mine and mine alone. However, I do think that being a Chrysler technician for the past 12 years gives me somewhat of a unique insight on the situation, and that's the perspective I'm going to try to bring for you guys. All right, so way back when, I think it was like a year and a half ago when I did one of my original videos about the Hemi Tick, I was talking about the lifters, and I was talking about what we could expect Chrysler to actually do about the situation. Now, so many people said that this engine should be recalled, that this sort of problem should be covered under a recall. And what I was trying to do is I was trying to point out that because it was not a safety or emissions related issue, it was not going to be covered as a recall. Now, a lot of people pushed back against that and said, hey, this is absolutely a safety issue because if this thing stalls while you're driving, it could cause an accident, et cetera, et cetera. And one thing I'd like to point out here is that this is a mechanical issue, and not only that, it is a degenerative mechanical issue, meaning that for it to get to the point where it would actually stall on you while you were driving, that means that you would have to have ignored the problem for several months, 6 months plus, before it got bad enough where the engine would actually stall on its own. Now, believe me or not, that is how this works. It's a degenerative issue that you might first notice as a ticking noise or with a slight misfire. If you don't get it handled within that first few months after that and just keep driving it, guys, that's kind of on you for doing that when you knew that there was an issue. So again, this is not going to be a safety related issue. It is purely a mechanical one. I'd also like to clarify, I'm not against you here. I'm not supporting Chrysler here. I'm not defending them. All I'm telling you is the facts of what it is. It's a degenerative mechanical issue. Now, to be perfectly clear, the Hemi Tick that we are talking about in this particular video is the camshaft and lifter issue. Specifically, the lifters themselves, the needle bearings will fail, the rollers will stop rolling, and then they will start to eat into the camshaft lobe itself, eventually leading to a misfire and potentially sending metal particles throughout the engine. All right, let's get into the lawsuit itself. Now, all of the information I have for you today, I will give you the link that I got that from down below, but it was being brought by 3 different owners here: Sean Petro, Mike Fairchild, and David Kinchin. And they've got a 2020 Ram 2500, a 2015 Dodge Ram 1500, and a 2016 Ram 1500. All very likely scenarios for having a lifter issue. All right, the first concern, it says the 3 owners who sued alleged the Hemi V8 engines, we're talking both the 5.7 and the 6.4 liters, use valve train systems called multi-displacement systems that are defective and malfunction, causing engine ticking noise, failures of the camshafts, lifters, and finally failures of the Hemi engines. Now, do I agree with this statement? Half and half. I say half because yes, that is the end result, but I do not believe it is as a direct result of the MDS system. If you guys have been watching my channel for a while, you will know that. I don't think it's the MDS, and the reason I don't is because we oftentimes see non-MDS lifter failures leading to the exact same issue. So I believe it is more a quality issue between the lifters themselves and the camshaft. Doesn't really have anything to do with the MDS system. One of the major talking points for why I believe that is because the pre-2009 Hemi engines, the pre-Eagle engines basically, they do not have this same issue. Now, they do have maybe an issue with the hydraulic portion of the lifter failing, but they do not have this specific issue of the lifter roller failing and eating into the camshaft. We do not see that on the pre-2009 engines. I know there's always commenters who say, well, mine did it. Maybe it did. Maybe there was an outlier, but I'm telling you, as a general rule, we did not see this problem before 2009, and those engines had MDS on them the entire time, and they had no problem with it. So I do not believe this is the MDS related issue. All right, second point, the Fiat Chrysler vehicles allegedly buck, surge, misfire, idle roughly, and make abnormal noises, including ticking, knocking, and chirping. That is true. The lawsuit also claims that Hemi engines can lose power while the vehicles are driven. yeah, if you've got a misfire, you're definitely going to have a loss of power. According to the plaintiffs, the Hemi engine should last at least 200,000 miles, and the valve train components should last more than 100,000 miles. Now, that is certainly not unreasonable to expect, and honestly, I've seen a great many Hemi engines that have over 250,000 miles on them and still work perfectly fine. So yeah, I agree with them there. However, where I think they're going to run into some problems here is that you do have a powertrain warranty on these vehicles that only lasts a certain amount of time. It's different for all the different models, but as a general rule, you've got a 3-year, 36,000 mile warranty or a 5-year, 60,000 mile powertrain warranty. At that point, Chrysler, Fiat, Stellantis, whatever, they say, it's on you. Whatever happens after this point, that's on you. So while I agree with their statements, and I think that, yeah, that's something that we should expect that these vehicles should be capable of, I also think that it's the sort of thing that's very, very difficult to get a court to say, hey, they should still be covering these issues at 100,000 miles when their factory warranty only goes to this certain amount of time. Because implicitly by buying that vehicle, you are agreeing and saying that, yes, I will only honor this warranty up to this particular time, and then after that, I understand that it's my responsibility to take care of the vehicle. So the next point here, it says that this class action lawsuit says it is a partial list of the affected vehicles. I'll go ahead and put those up on the screen now. And I have to agree that it's absolutely a partial list. I'm not really sure why they thought it was good to start with 2014 on all these models. I definitely think that this issue goes back further than that. Like I said, all the way back to 2009, essentially. So 2014 seems like a strange place to start to me, but I can understand where they're coming from, and this is the sort of thing that could eventually include more models as well. Next point, pieces of the valve train components allegedly circulate in the engine oil and damage the cylinders to the point of complete failures of the Hemi engines. According to plaintiffs, all of this occurs well before the useful life of the engine ends. Okay, well, I have a little bit of an issue with their wording here, that this metal in the oil is causing a failure of the cylinders. I think that's going to be the last of your concerns here. That metal that is circulating throughout the oil is going to cause a bunch of other issues first. I would say like spun main bearings, spun rod bearings, something like that. I'm not really sure where they came up with this wording of it damaging the cylinders, but regardless, the end result is the same, that if there's enough metal circulating through the engine, absolutely it's going to need to be replaced. Now, the alleged engine ticking defects caused the Chrysler vehicles to suffer decreased values and force owners and lessees to spend thousands of dollars to replace the lifters, camshafts, and Hemi engines. That is absolutely true. There's no denying that. And in fact, the Hemi tick is so pervasive and such a concern that it really does drive values quite a bit lower for used Hemi engines. Now it says, however, the class action lawsuit asserts replacing the engines and components does not do anything to repair the problem because the replacement engines and parts are just as defective as the original components. Okay, this one's a tough one because if you're saying that something will last 100,000 miles before a failure and you're replacing it with a brand new part that will then last another 100,000 miles, I would like for you to point out to me an aftermarket part that would have that same sort of legacy. If an aftermarket part could come to you and say, hey, I will last 100,000 miles, you would take that jumping for joy. You'd be like, that's amazing. What quality this thing has to last that long. So to me, if you've got a Hemi engine that has 100,000 miles on it and you put a camshaft and lifters in there and it goes another 100,000 miles before there's another issue, can you really claim that that is really a failure on behalf of the manufacturer? I don't know. I don't think I personally would say that. But again, people are paying a lot of money for these vehicles. I don't think it's unreasonable to expect them to be able to go 200,000 miles plus without having a major issue. Okay, these next 2 points are somewhat connected. So the plaintiffs also claim Chrysler dealers often make incomplete repairs because the lifters were not totally replaced or other engine components that were damaged by the valve train's failure may not be replaced at all. Because metal shavings circulate through the oil in the Hemi engine, the lawsuit alleges Chrysler customers are expected to pay about $15,000 to replace the Hemi V8 engines. Then those Chrysler engines cause the exact same ticking noise and other problems until the replacement Hemi engines must be replaced. Okay, this is kind of a big talking point, so I'm going to get into my thoughts. Okay, the first thing you have to realize is that the dealership themselves and Chrysler are two entirely separate corporations. They share the name and the dealership essentially works for Chrysler, but they are separate in every way that matters. So they are each going to look out for their own best interests. Now, what does this mean in regards to your repairs in your engine? Okay, so essentially, let's say you are having a repair done on your engine. Now, if you have that repair done by the dealership is now on the hook for warranting those repairs. So the parts themselves are still warranted through Chrysler, but all the labor and everything is through the dealership themselves. So they'll warranty it for a certain period of time, whether it's 2 years, 24,000 miles, whatever. But now the dealership is the one on the hook for those repairs. But let's say instead of repairing the engine, they just replace the engine with a remanufactured unit. At that point, the warranty shifts to Chrysler themselves, and they are the ones on the hook for if anything goes wrong. They'll pay for both the parts and the labor at that point. So a lot of dealerships feel like it's in their best interest to just recommend a replacement engine rather than repairing the engine. That way, the buck will pass on to Chrysler if there is indeed an issue in the future. Now, a lot of times you'll see this when it comes to transmissions. It's very easy to spot a dealership that does not have a competent transmission tech on staff because you'll find them recommending a lot of reman transmissions. They don't like to rebuild them because they don't want to be on the hook for repairing them if they come back. So it's easier for them to just say, hey, you needed a new transmission. Just put a new transmission in there because, again, that'll pass the buck on to Chrysler if there is an issue down the road. Now, what am I saying here? Am I saying that dealerships are recommending engines when you may not need an entire engine replacement? Could be. Honestly, again, it's so much easier just to put a brand new engine in place of the one you have. You don't have to worry about anything coming back on you. I'm going to tell you why that's important due to this next point on the lawsuit. Okay, next up in the article, it says FCA has allegedly been aware of the Hemi engine defects since 2012, but the automaker concealed the problems the past 10 years and allegedly told customers the ticking and other strange noises were normal. Okay, do I agree that Chrysler basically concealed this issue? I wouldn't say concealed. I think that's a little bit too strong of a term. I do think that they did not put anything down in writing because that's tantamount to admitting that they knew that there was an issue. But it was kind of one of those deals where everyone in the industry knew that there was something going on here. But again, they weren't willing to put that down in writing. Now, as far as allegedly telling customers the ticking and other strange noises were normal, I don't agree with that at all. At all. Because I know myself personally, as a technician and as someone who I have integrity in what I do, if I know something is not normal, I'm not going to sit there and tell you that it is. There's no chance of that happening. So this is one of those deals where Chrysler themselves might have been able to insulate themselves because they're saying, hey, the dealers are the ones that have told you this, not us. We didn't say that. It was the dealer who told you that. So they have that kind of level of separation there. So everyone's going to have a slightly different experience based on which dealer they are talking to because, again, they are completely separate companies. They have their own policies, their own way of handling things. So is this an intentional smear thing by Chrysler to have them tell customers that this noise is absolutely normal? That's never been the case at any Chrysler dealer I've worked at. We've always dealt with all of these cam and lifter issues on a case-by-case basis. If I hear something that's abnormal, that I think is absolutely something we need to investigate, I'm going to tell you that, and we're going to go ahead and investigate that and see if a repair needs to be made. All right, next, the lawsuit says the engine ticking noise and other related Hemi problems caused Chrysler to issue star case report, this long star case number, in 2017. Now, to clarify, STAR is essentially our technical assistance line for the dealerships. If we're struggling with an issue that for whatever reason we're not able to figure out on our own, we have to start a STAR case, talk to our technical assistance guys. And these are basically a lot of like engineers and types in Chrysler who can maybe give us some information, point us in a direction maybe we weren't looking at before, or have additional information that's not actually available to us that they can help give us some pointers and ways to go. So many times, if we are dealing with an issue and we're not finding anything right off the bat, we can actually search these STAR cases and see if there's something maybe published in the past that can help give us an indication about which way we need to go before we start a new STAR case. So the STAR case essentially says that customer complaints may include abnormal engine noise, rough idle, lack of power, misfire. Upon investigation, it may be found that there is excessive camshaft lobe wear or lifter wear on one or more cam lobes, and that camshaft and lifter replacement is necessary. So again, this is a STAR case. This is not a technical service bulletin. It comes up shy of something like that. So I'm not sure what the differences are there as far as like technical service bulletins being available to the public, whereas STAR cases were not. I'm not really sure what the difference is, but we do have something in writing here from Chrysler saying, hey, if you have a misfire issue, you might want to take a look at these cam lobes and see if that's what your problem is. Now, continuing information from that STAR case, dealers were told, if excessive camshaft lobe wear or lifter wear has been identified, further inspection should be performed before attempting the repair. Removal of the oil control valve for the variable valve timing system should be performed to inspect for debris. Now, I'll go ahead and give you guys a shot of what this oil control valve is right here. Now, this one on the screen, that one does not have lifter failure, therefore that screen is clear. However, if we remove that valve and you see a bunch of metal debris build up on that screen, at that point, Chrysler is going to say, hey, put a whole new engine in that thing because there's been too much metal circulating through it. But if you pull that oil control valve and that screen is clear, most of the time you can get away with just replacing a camshaft and lifters and the engine is perfectly fine. Now again, this is a judgment call by the dealership. So if you pull that oil control valve and you don't see any sort of metal in that screen, you kind of have to make a call at that point. Am I going to just replace the camshaft and lifters, or am I going to go full bore here and replace the entire engine? And honestly, that's kind of a no-win situation for the dealership, because if then they just replace the camshaft and lifters and then there's a problem down the line with that engine, now they're on the hook for those repairs. Whereas if they just recommend doing an entire engine, sure, they've passed the buck on to the Chrysler as far as having to deal with that warranty down the road, but now you've just recommended a massively expensive engine to the customer. So honestly, the dealers are in a bit of a no-win situation there. I will say for myself personally, if I pull that oil control valve and I don't see any signs of metal in the screen, I am 100% comfortable replacing just the camshaft and lifters on those engines. I don't have a problem with that. And then the reason for that is as you pull that camshaft out and see how much damage the lobe has, if it is just starting to wear into the hardened surface of the cam, there's not really going to be any metal really traveling throughout the engine. It's not going to be that big of a deal. However, if I just recommend a camshaft and lifters and I pull that camshaft out and I see that lobe is really eaten into farther than I expected it was, okay, at that point, I'm going to talk to the customer. I'm going to say, hey, this is what I found. And at this point, I would recommend us to move on to an entire engine replacement. Also, a quick clarification here. When it comes to the 6.4 liter truck engines, if they have an actual failed roller lifter, I am going to be recommending an engine for that vehicle because there's an engine oil cooler that actually bolts to the engine block itself. And the way the block is cast, if there is any metal debris, it can get kind of caught up in that area and be very hard to find or flush out, and could very easily come back and destroy that engine. So again, 6.4 truck engines, if you have a failed roller lifter, myself personally, I'm recommending an engine. Now, honestly, for my part, I hope they succeed. I think that would be fantastic if they were able to get Mopar to stand behind their product here and really actually fix some of these concerns, because that's a major cash outlay that a lot of people don't have available to them. It'd be great if they were able to get some sort of extended warranty coverage on these vehicles to cover this specific issue. I just think that'd be great for the brand themselves to show people that they're willing to stand behind their products and say, we understand that you as loyal customers want this stuff handled. I'd like to see that happen. I do think that there are a couple of different barriers to this actually happening though, and one of those is the fact that primarily most of these issues happen after the vehicle is outside of the factory powertrain warranty. And I just think it's going to be very difficult to prove legally that Chrysler should be responsible for something after it's outside of that actual warranty period that they have in place. One, we have to be able to verifiably prove, and I mean prove, that the issue is being caused by a roller lifter failure. Now, one of the only ways to do that is to actually tear the engine down and inspect it. So if you are sure that your problem is a roller lifter issue, and then we then tear down your engine and find that all the lifters are okay, guess what? You are going to be on the hook for that repair. Even though we're not actually doing anything, we're just verifying if the issue is there or not. Chrysler's not going to pay for that if we do not find a problem. You are going to have to pay for that labor to put it all back together again, as well as take it apart. Now, the second thing is I think there's going to be an extraordinarily high barrier to entry to actually get that extended warranty. Now, what I mean by that is you're going to have to prove using receipts that you have properly maintained your vehicle as per Chrysler recommendations up to however long you've owned the vehicle until this issue happened. If you cannot come up with those maintenance records, there's a good chance they will be able to deny you having those repairs done. Now, this third thing is going to be very difficult for Mopar people specifically. We all love to modify our vehicles. However, you have to be able to show that you did not modify your engine outside of its normal performance standards. Now, this could affect the way the engine runs and also would make it very simple for Chrysler to deny this extended warranty coverage on your vehicle. Now, obviously, I'm just some random dude on the internet talking about this issue. I have no idea what's going to happen with this case as it moves through the legal system, but I know I will be keeping a close eye on it. Now, if you guys have any particular questions or comments that you'd like to leave down below, I like to try to get back to my commenters as much as I possibly can. Go ahead and leave those down there. I'll give you my thoughts and my opinions because in the end, that's all they come down to, my opinions. All right, you guys, appreciate you spending a few minutes hanging out with me. If you'd like to see what's going on with this supercharged Hemi right here, go ahead and check out our twin charged Magnum project we got going on. But until then, we'll see you next time on Reignited.